Hello everyone, we're back with another Ren'Py tutorial today, and for this one I'm going to show you how to do custom animations using animation and transform language in Ren'Py. I've done a couple of videos on these, I think a while ago, but they could use some updating, and also I'm going to kind of show you some different things you can do with them. Most of my older videos, I think, were more kind of surface level, so this is probably going to be the first one in a series that delves really deeply into animation and transform language, because there's some really cool stuff that you can do, which we will get into momentarily. So while you're here, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, so you never miss one of my new videos. And if there's anything particular that you want to see about animation and transform language, or about anything in Ren'Py in general, feel free to leave me a comment below, and I will see about doing that in a future tutorial. So for now, basically, animation and transform language is, like I said, a way to create your own animations and transitions in the game. Basically, that's a way to make your graphics do something. And there are a few different ways that you can use them, and a few different statements that you can use them with. But right now, we're going to use them with the show statement, which is just how you show graphics on the screen, which again is only one way that you can use ATL, or animation and transform language. So as usual, I've got a pretty bare bones project started. So I just have a couple of images defined. I've got a background, which I don't even think I'm using that definition of the background. I'll go ahead and get rid of that just to clean things up a little bit. There we go. And yeah, I've got my characters defined. Again, very, very basic characters. And then a really, really simple scene. So we'll go ahead and take a look at what that does right now. And there we go. It takes a lot of load sometimes. So if I go to start, just got my one person, Luna, my background, and says one statement. So the most basic way to use transforms is to use what are called built-in transforms. So there are a few different built-in statements that you can use. I did a short on this a while back, but I'll go a little bit deeper into it this time just to show you the different things you can do. So basically, this just determines where basically the character appears on the screen. And I'm going to try to shrink that down a little bit so I can get my code on the screen at the same time. There we go. It's not really big, but it doesn't have to be for what we're about to do. Actually, I have to cover it up anyway. All right, so if I go down here, so right now I've got show Luna neutral, and by default it places the character in the center of the screen. But let's say we wanted her on the left, like maybe we wanted to put another character on the right. All you have to do is put the @ keyword and then left, and then save it. And then when we go back, reload that, start it again. And now she appears on the left side of the screen. And as you can imagine, you can also put in the word right, and that will make her appear on the right side of the screen. There we go. Exact same thing, but on the right side. So that is kind of the basic way of using animation and transforms, but we're going to go a little bit deeper than that for right now, and I'm going to show you how to make your own. So let's say I actually wanted to do like very, very fine positioning on the screen. Like I didn't want her on far left or far right, but I wanted to determine the exact placement on the screen that I wanted to put her as. So I can use this show statement like a Python block, or a coding block. So if I put a colon after that, then under that I can put in any number of different statements to make her appear different ways on the screen. Not even just position-wise, but lots of different stuff. So for instance, if I say XPOS, that stands for X position. And the way I believe that it does positioning is that 0 is on the far left of the screen and 1 is on the far right of the screen. So let me test that real quick. And I'm just going to say show Luna neutral, and I'm just going to put X position at 0. And we'll see what that does. There we go. So yeah, so that puts her at the far left of the screen. And then if I do X position 1.0, it's good to get into the habit of putting these in as floating points, because sometimes it doesn't like it when you use whole numbers. Not always, but sometimes that can cause issues. Yeah, so here she is actually off the screen, and the reason why is because her origin point, like when you put in that X position, it uses the far left side of the image by default. I think it actually uses the top left side if I'm not mistaken. So she's actually still here, she's just off the right side of the screen. So if I back it up just a little bit. Like, let me change that to 0.9. There we go. So now you can see a little bit of that arm on the right side of the screen because her 0 point is now 90% across the screen. I hope that makes sense. So again, as you can imagine, you can also do things like Y position, which I don't think is going to do much with this character. It might. Let's try it, but she takes up the full width of the screen, so it might put her off the screen. So let's try. We'll try like 0.5. Let's see what that does. There we go. Yeah, so it worked. So as you can see, the X values go to the right as you increase the number, but the Y values go down, which is a little bit different from the way that the coordinate planes that you learn to use in school. So typically in graphics, the 0.0 point is at the very top left, and then Y values increase as you go down, and X values increase as you go to the right, instead of up and to the right, again, like we learned in school. But yeah, so again, you can use that to, do kind of fine tuning to place your character exactly where you want them on the screen. But that still isn't exactly what we want to do. We want to create animations. We want to make the character actually do something on the screen. The cool thing about this is that with this coding block, you can put a number of different commands and what you want to happen and how you want to transition between them. So let me go back to exposition. So let's say XPOS, and I'll change that to, I'll just put that at 0, which is our far left side of the screen. And let's say that I wanted to move her to the right of the screen, but not all the way off. So I'm going to just pick a random number. Let's do like 0.75. So 0.5, 0.75. There we go. And let's see what that does. Let me reload. And as you can see, it completely ignored the first command and put her on the far right of the screen. It's not entirely accurate. It actually did run the first command, but it immediately jumped to the second one. So whenever you do an animation, you have to tell it exactly how you want to animate. And we have a few different options. Right now, I'm going to use the simplest one, which is linear animation. So when you do this, you'll put in the keyword for whatever type of transition you want to do. So we're going to do linear, and then you put in a speed. And this is just how many seconds that it's going to take for the animation to happen. So let's just say linear 5. So we're going to start at 0, and then we're going to take 5 seconds to move to 75% of the way across the screen. And we're going to do that in a linear fashion, which that means steady speed, like a line. So we've saved that, and let's open that back up, and we'll see what she does now. So now we're starting on the left, and oops, you know what I did? I did something wrong. When you do that, you have to put that on the same line in order to do that animation. Technically, that's one line. That's one command. Let's save that, and now it should work. There we go. So now we're starting on the left, and then we take exactly 5 seconds to travel across the screen. So if you are anything like me, you're probably wondering what different kinds of transitions that you can do. Like, what if you don't want her to move linearly across the screen? What if you want it to like start kind of slow and then gradually increase speed as you move across the screen? We can do that with the ease out transition. So now when we start that, it's going to ease out of that transition. So it's going to start slow and then get faster and faster and faster as she travels across the screen. So let's try that and see what that looks like. So now starting slow and then getting faster until we hit our maximum speed and stop dead when we hit our point. So as you can imagine, there is also an ease in, which does the exact opposite. Now we're going to start fast and then slowly or gradually slow down as we move across the screen until she just kind of drifts to a stop. Starting fast, getting slower, and ending. There we go. That's kind of a cool effect. So what else can we do with this? So that was the X position and Y position that we just did. There are a whole host of different things that we can do. But I'll show you a couple of fun ones. One of them that I like to use a lot is zoom. So let's say, And I've got to remember how zoom works. I believe it works the same way. So 0 is like regular zoom. And if you want to zoom in basically 100%, you would put, or technically this is 100% zoom, but if you wanted to do a 200% zoom, you would put in 2. Oh, wait, 1. There we go. That's the main zoom. That's 100%. And then if we wanted to zoom in 2 times, we would put 2. And then let's do kind of the same thing. We'll do ease in 5, and we'll change that zoom to 1. Actually, let's reverse those. There we go. And let's try that one. I think it reloaded automatically. Yep, there we go. So we started at regular zoom, which is 100%, and then kind of ease in zoom up to 200% zoom. So she is now twice as big. And you can also combine these. Like, let's kind of combine it with the one that we just did. So let's start at zoom 1 and X position 0. And then we'll ease in to zoom 2 and X position 0.75. Yeah, let's give that a try. I think that these values are redundant. I don't think you need those there, but I'm going to go ahead and leave them there just because I find that doing things explicitly is generally a little bit better. There we go. So now, yeah, we zoom in as she travels across the screen, and a zoom effect is a little bit much. We could fix that by changing the zoom value to like a 0.25. That should be a little bit more manageable. There we go. And yeah, as with everything, just play with these values, experiment, break things, just kind of figure out what works, and you might come up with some really cool effects that you wouldn't have even thought of using, and you will probably always find a way to use some of these. All right, we are going to play with those some more in just a minute, but for now, I just want to demonstrate that we can do the exact same things with the background. So even though this says scene, I said we were going to deal with show statements. Scene is a type of show statement. So it's saying that we're going to show a background. That is the scene keyword. And just like with that one, we can create its own coding block. And for this one, let's do zoom. I actually found one that I was messing with earlier, so I already know what numbers to use. Zoom 1.5. So we're going to be zoomed in 25%. We're going to set our X position to 0, which is the default. And then we're going to move linearly to X position negative 0.5, which means that we are going to move, instead of moving to the right, we're going to move to the left, because that's where negative numbers go on our coordinate plane that we're going to use. And when I play that, so now you can see you can scroll the background as well. You could also add a Y position to like move that up or down. But again, that is a pretty neat effect. So that is what I would call inline statements. You're just putting those like in your coding lines. But one of the main principles that I like to follow, coders that are much better than I am call this the DRY principle, which stands for don't repeat yourself, which is where functions come in. And if you've done any even like novice programming, you probably know what functions are. I think I've got a couple of videos about that. I will look for those and link those above if you want to check them out. But basically, a function is just a reusable bit of code. So a tiny bit of code that you can put, or it can even be a huge bit of code, honestly. But it's something that you can call with just one line. So you can reuse this code over and over and over again. So let's say that we had this thing down here where we zoom in. And I'm going to get rid of the X position, and we're just going to deal with the zoom for right now. So let's say that there were going to be lots of times that I wanted to zoom in from 100% to 200% over the span of 5 seconds. And I don't want to type that in every time I do it. We can put that in as a function. And this is built into Ren'Py, so you don't even have to go into Python to do this by using a Python block. But we can just put it right in by defining a transform. So let's say transform, and we'll say zoom to X. So that means we're going to zoom in 2 times, 200%. Put our colon to create a coding block, and then we just put in exactly what we did down here, and I'm actually not even going to retype it. I'm just going to cut that, and we'll paste it up here. This did not paste correctly for some reason. There we go. And so now, instead of saying show Luna neutral and creating that whole coding block, we can do kind of like we did before, where I said show Luna neutral at left or at right, except we can say show Luna neutral at zoom to X. And then it will automatically apply that transform that we just created. So now I've saved that, and when I go back into it, should look exactly the same. Yep, there we go. Except now, again, it just doesn't just operate with that one, but I could go add another character. So let's show Luna. Let's do show, who's my other character? Steven. Should be easy to remember. Neutral at zoom 2x. And if it works as expected, there we go. It does the exact same thing for both of them. So again, you can reuse that as many times as you want. Cut down dramatically on the amount of work that you have to do. So that is pretty cool. But let's say that you wanted to have control over the speed that you zoomed in, or you wanted to have control over how much zoom that you could apply. Just like when you do functions, you can put in arguments to a function or parameters. So the way that you put in parameters, by the way, not to get too pedantic, but whenever you create these in a function definition, they're called parameters. Then whenever you call them, like we're about to in a moment, they call them arguments. Some people are super picky about that distinction. I am not quite that picky about the language that I use as long as we understand what's going on. But let's say we want to determine the amount and the speed. So we want to be able to change those two things every time we call this function. So in that case, instead of saying zoom 1, we're going to say zoom amount. And then it's going to take that amount that we put in parentheses and it's going to put it in there. So this is kind of just like a placeholder or a variable that we're going to use. And then for, we'll actually do this. Let's do amount start, amount end. So that way we can pick the starting zoom and the ending zoom. And then speed. Right there where the speed goes. So now every time we call this, we can change the zoom in the beginning, the zoom in the end, and then how fast we want it to happen. So let's say for Lana neutral, and we'll also change that just to zoom to better reflect our new effect. So let's say we want to start at 1.0 like we did before. Let's end at 2.0, and we want to do that over 5 seconds. Then for Steven, let's say we want to go backwards. Let's do 2.0 to 1.0, and let's only take 3.5 seconds. I think that will work as a floating point number. We're about to find out. I did not test that beforehand. All right, Shift R to reload. It already did. And start. There we go. And now, yeah, we have those two opposite effects happening at the same time. Again, the same bit of code, but now we can just pass in different arguments to get the effect that we want. There we go. So that's pretty cool. If you want to use that, again, use that effect over and over again, but use different values, that is the way that you can do that. Let's try one or two more things real quick, just to show you some different values that you can play with this exact same thing. Two of them that I was playing around with earlier are rotate and blur. So let's create a rotation effect. Transform, we'll just call this rotate. And we'll do kind of like we did before. We'll say amount and speed. And so then we can say rotate amount and linear 5. Oops, I'm going to do the same thing we did before. Let's do amount start and amount end. There we go. Amount end. So let's try that now with Luna. Let me get rid of the Steven line for now. And we're going to show Lana neutral at rotate. Let's start at 0, which is a 0-degree rotation. So that's just going to be right side up just like she normally is. Let's have it end at a 90-degree rotation. So this one is in degrees. And then speed, we'll do what we did before and say 5 seconds. So when we play that, oops, it did not reload. There we go. There we go. And so now she rotates, which looks a little bit weird because I've got her cut off at the thighs just to display the image there. But yeah, but you should be able to put in any degree amount. I think all the way up to 360. Maybe even beyond that, it'll probably handle more. Let's try it real quick. Let's try 720 degrees. And we say, oops, I accidentally did Control instead of Control S. Let's see if we can get her to spin around 2 times. Again, I did not even test this. I'm just kind of curious at this point. And oh my goodness, it worked. Oh, there's once and 2. So you can spin 720 degrees. Man, whenever I find out something new like this, I swear I spend like an hour just like playing with different things and seeing all the cool stuff that I can do. Let's do one more for now. Let's try a blur transform. This is one that I just discovered today. That's kind of cool. And we'll do what we did before. Let's say amount start, amount end, and speed. And remember, with these parameters that you're putting in, you can do whatever values you want. So if you want it to always happen at the same speed, you don't have to put speed there. Or if you know you always want it to be start at 0, actually, let's try that real quick just for something different. So let's say that we always want to start at amount 0. Then we'll say blur 0. We'll just hard code that value in. Then linear speed. And blur amount end. And now let's change that rotate to blur. And for amount end, let's say 50. I don't even know exactly what the numbers mean on this. So whenever I do these, again, I've got to play with the values. And speed, let's do 5 seconds again. And this one, ideally speaking, should blur our image. Oh, but it started without us. There we go, starting it perfectly clear, and then we go to, I guess, 50% blur, I suppose. Yeah, so that way, that's a cool way to create like a camera focusing effect. Like you might have another player behind her, like on a different layer that's kind of blurred out, and then have them like switch their blur amounts where it looks like you're kind of focusing the camera differently. Again, like I said, every time I learn a new trick like this, I play around with the values, and I also start thinking about all the different ways that I can functionally use this in a game. I hope you're doing the same way and seeing the different things that you can think to do. Oh, also, by the way, I believe that you can do any of these with the scene statement, and we're about to find out about that. So let's try blur 55, just like we did with Luna. And just to try something different, I'm going to give her a different blur amount. There we go. Again, just trying some different values. And yeah, there we go. So now we're blurring the background. That works perfectly. Very, very good. Nice. So yeah, check out the official documentation on this. I will link to the animation and transform language documentation below. Some of it is a little bit difficult to understand. It took me a lot of work to kind of figure out how to do all of these and a lot of trial and error. So that's why I decided to do a video about this, because this is one of the very few areas where I think the official documentation is a little bit lacking. But I'll link to a couple of places where you can see the different transforms that you can do like zoom, rotate, blur, so you can see all of those, as well as the different things that you can do like linear, ease in, ease out. I will link to those as well. If there's anything in the documentation you'd like to see me cover that's unclear, or anything in particular you'd like to see me do with ATL or anything else, as always, please leave me a comment below. One of the hardest parts about doing videos is just finding things to do videos on. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like to see, let me know and I will be sure to tackle that. Or if you have any ideas of ways that you can use these functionally in a visual novel, I'd love to hear about that as well. I'm always looking for new ideas. But that will about wrap this one up for today. I will be back next week with another tutorial, maybe on ATL, maybe on something a little bit different. So as always, happy coding, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.